Well, of course, as I was recording this podcast, there was some breaking news that took place between the Minnesota Timberwolves, Chicago Bulls, and the Brooklyn Nets. And we have ourselves a three-team trade that I did not realize took place. And I think I actually talked about it before the trade happened. So we can just ignore that part of it, I guess, of the podcast. The Pacers will not be able to trade for Minnesota's number 28 because now that belongs to the Brooklyn Nets. So here we go. Here are the details of the trade. Julius Randle and the number 28 pick are heading to the Brooklyn Nets. Nic Claxton is going to the Chicago Bulls. And the Timberwolves get the 33rd overall pick from Brooklyn in the second round. And they created a $33 million traded player exception, which ironically is the exact amount that Tyler Hero makes. So take that for what it's worth. This is a super lengthy draft preview where I dove into a lot of different things. I did touch on Minnesota as a potential team the Pacers could trade into the first round with because we knew that there was a lot of talks out there that 28 was available, but I think there's a lot of other teams that this could apply for. So understand that the Timberwolves pick has been traded to the Nets now with Julius Randle. And basically they just got off Randle's contract to the Nets. So now the Nets got Michael Porter Jr. and Julius Randle. What's next? And they got pick 28 and pick number 6. Watch out. The Nets are making moves. The Bulls get Nic Claxton. They got a center now. They're making moves. And Minnesota, they're making moves as well, getting off some salary. So like I said, you just never know what's going to happen when you're recording around this time. So appreciate you all for bearing with me and pushing through some of these conversations that might be irrelevant by the time you listen to this, but I'm doing the best I can, trying to stay up on top of things and whatnot. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the episode today where we're talking all things NBA draft.
This is Tyrese Halliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Hey, what's up, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. I'm your host, Alex Golden, and on today's show, I'm going to be going solo to preview the NBA draft. And I already can hear Pacer fans listening to this saying, Alex, why do you have to put us through so much more trauma? We already saw the Pacers lose the most amount of games I've ever lost in a season at, 63 games. They end up having the second worst record in the NBA. They trade away their pick if it doesn't fall into the top 4. And what happens? It falls out of the top 4, goes to the Clippers. Tyrese Halliburton out for the whole entire year, gets shingles on top of it. The freaking New York Knicks win the NBA championship. And Pacers had no say in that for the first time, in a long time where the Pacers and the Knicks haven't met in the playoffs. And now we have to sit here and talk about a draft the Pacers have no picks in. Well, they don't have any picks right now, but it's still early. So it is Monday night. It is 9:50 p.m. We are still waiting to see what's going to happen with the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Latest reports from Chris Haynes at this time are that the Celtics are now becoming the number 1 favorites to land Giannis, but the Miami Heat are not backing down. The Miami Heat are still very much in this, and it does appear that there is some kind of divide between ownership and management with the Bucks and what they want to do with their roster moving forward. Now, Shams Charania did say that when it comes to Giannis, it's going to be a 1v1 trade. Honestly, if you would have heard some of the rumblings that were going on Friday, Saturday, maybe even a little bit Sunday, there was a lot of talks. We're getting Detroit involved. We're getting the Lakers involved. We're getting Memphis potentially involved. There was other teams like the Clippers were starting to get in the mix of this. Portland, Minnesota, like there was a lot of teams involved in potentially making this a bigger deal. And what ended up happening was so much stuff got leaked. I think the Bucks kind of were like, you know what? We don't want to do this right now. We don't like that a lot of our legwork that was getting done to making a deal was getting leaked to the public. And I think that's why the Bucks decided, you know what? We're just going to work 1v1 right now, focus on the team we want to trade with where we want to send Giannis to. And look, no matter what package they get back, they can still make deals after this deal is done. I think Shams did a great job kind of laying it out. Like, look, originally, the original trade between the Rockets and the Suns was strictly between Phoenix and Houston. But then all of a sudden it becomes a 5-team deal after it's all said and done by July 6th. So there's still ripple effects that could happen after this trade goes through, but I think everybody is just ready to find out where Giannis is going, has gone, because by the time this gets put out, Giannis could be traded. We do not know, but we do know that the Pacers will not be involved in any Giannis trades, but don't rule them out potentially getting into part of this trade. They haven't really been in the mix, but you just never know. And then I talked about it a little bit at the end of our Monday episode with Brad and Ryan Knight from the Pacers Post Up. The Atlanta Hawks did some really good business on Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. They extended CJ McCollum to a 1-year, $21 million extension, and they also were able to acquire Aaron Wiggins for a 2030 and a 2032 second-round pick. Pretty dirt cheap, and it was the worst of the Lakers and the Hawks. So it's not like they had to give up a whole lot to get a really good player. It did end up helping the Thunder save $61 million, according to Bobby Marks, in salary cap implications. So you're looking at it from that standpoint. The Thunder still have a ways to go. I think they're like $140 to $150 million still over like the tax and how much they owe. And so making subsequent moves in addition to what they did with Aaron Wiggins will help them get underneath that. I think they can probably do it if they just waive Kenrich Williams, waive Lou Dort, but they probably want to try to get a little bit more back from it. Even if you get 2 mediocre second-round picks, you can use those second-round picks, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. But I want to talk about the draft because I think it's really interesting for the Pacers. There's a lot of reporting going around right now that teams in the back third of the NBA draft might be looking to get out of those picks. And here's a lot of the reason why. A lot of those teams back there either have multiple picks or they're up against it salary cap wise. And so you look at a team like Denver, they've been, rumored to basically say 26 could be available from Denver with Zeke Naji being attached to that. I think is around $7 million. If a team is willing to take on Zeke Naji's contract plus get 26, that could be some interesting business for both sides. The Cavaliers definitely are up against it with the second apron. They will probably look to move back from 29 into the second round. There are a handful of teams that I could see potentially moving up. One that makes a lot of sense to me is the Brooklyn Nets, just because who knows what they're going to do. But I think they could stand to take another first round pick, even if it's at 29, because the contracts are just different in the first round versus the second round. But for Indiana, we did hear from Jake Fisher about 4 or 5 days ago that the Pacers are looking at getting back into the second round of the NBA draft, which will take place on Wednesday because, right, round 1's on Tuesday, round 2 is on Wednesday. And what I like about how the second round picks work is you look at what the Pacers signed Johnny Furphy to, and you look at what they signed Cam Jones to. They signed Cam Jones to a minimum contract with 0 experience. You can do that with a second round pick. There is no limit to what you have to pay somebody. And I think that might be something the Pacers do. And this season, the minimum for a player with 0 experience is around $1.35 million. That is significantly cheaper than paying a veteran a minimum contract, which is closer to $4 million. And so when you're looking at $2.5 million difference, that's the difference between adding a certain level of player and another player when you're looking at how the first apron works and how the Pacers kind of want to operate under that. And so if they want to get somebody on a much cheaper contract, that would make a lot of sense to get back into the second round. So I'm gonna kind of explain a little bit more some of the teams that I think the Pacers could trade with, and then go through a list of players I think that could make sense for the Pacers or kind of be on their radar. Some they worked out, some they didn't. But when you have no picks, you kind of just take who will come work out for you, because the Pacers had a lot of players that were not ranked in the top 60 come work out for them. In the top 100, they had 15. And that's based on the Athletics ranking. Sam Vecini, who I think is probably the best draft analyst out there. No offense to anybody else. I'm a big fan of Vecini's work. I think he does a really good job. When you look at what he did in terms of his top 100, I know it's probably been updated and maybe things have changed a little bit, but overall, a lot of players were kind of after that, 60 range. And so you're looking at a handful of players the Pacers worked out that could be in this 31 to 39 range that they're rumored to be traded into. But at the same time, you can't count on anything just because you never know how the draft is going to shake out. I mean, Johnny Furphy 2 years ago, everybody expected him to be a first-round pick. He falls to the second round. Pacers, I think it was $6 million in cash considerations plus the 36th pick and maybe a future second to move up and swap spots with the San Antonio Spurs for 36. So it was a 35-36 swap. And then last year they traded with the Spurs once again and got pick 38 when they were not even in that range, and they got Cameron Jones. So There's obviously teams that will be willing to move out in that range, and I think the Pacers should be very diligent about seeing if they can find any of those teams to work a deal with. But it's more than just getting a second-round pick because of that $1.35 million salary as you're trying to navigate the second apron. Getting a high pick like that is also ammunition to potentially get back into the end of the first round. So, according to Jake Fisher, about 4 days ago, he said Minnesota is very much in conversation to move its number 28 selection, with rival teams saying that the Wolves are searching for another ball handler to bolster their backcourt. If the Wolves were to move down but not out of the draft completely, league personnel have pegged Sergio De La Rey from Valencia in Spain as a prospect prominent on Minnesota president Tim Conley's radar. Okay, so when you look at the Pacers and kind of their draft history, their trade history, this does feel kind of similar to a deal they did not too long ago, back in 2021. In 2021, the Pacers traded the number 31 pick, which ended up becoming Isaiah Todd, which nobody knows about him because I don't think he's in the league anymore, and Aaron Holiday. Traded both those players to the Washington Wizards for the 22nd overall pick in the draft, which ended up becoming Isaiah Jackson. And the Lakers actually selected Jackson. If you recall, when Jackson got his jersey up there and his hat, it was a Lakers hat. But that was part of a 5-team deal that sent Russell Westbrook to the Washington Wizards. I believe he was on the Lakers. I'm not sure if he actually went to the Lakers after that, but either way, we know that Russell Westbrook was sent to the Wizards in this massive 5-team deal, and the Indiana Pacers walked away with Isaiah Jackson, who a lot of people were excited about, especially after drafting 24-year-old Chris Duarte with, the 13th overall pick in the draft that year. So the Pacers were like right there. They could have taken Moses Moody, the guy that I loved, and they didn't. And there was reports from J. Michael back when he was at the Indy Stars saying that Joe Lacob from the Golden State Warriors slammed the table when Chris Duarte was taken off the table because they thought he was Dominican Klay Thompson. And I was like, man, I would much rather have Moses Moody than Dominican Klay Thompson. But the first month of Chris Duarte was the most exciting, exhilarating thing I've ever seen from a rookie, probably in Pacers' recent memory. Maybe Benedict Matherin's first couple of months were pretty exciting too, but Chris Duarte was just like unbelievable to start out. Then he got hurt when he tripped over Kyle Lowry in a game against the Miami Heat, and then never really kind of figured things out again, lost his shot, and eventually found himself out of the league. So you just never know who you're drafting, but I think a lot of people were excited about Isaiah Jackson because he was this young prospect that was sitting there at like 19 years old, raw potential, super athletic, can jump out of the gym, can block shots, can do all the fun stuff, right? Like that's what everybody was like, all right, we got a young guy and we got an old guy. Let's develop, let's start this rebuild. And then everything else just kind of happened after that with the Halliburton trade and things like that. So this was Rick Carlisle's first year as the Pacers head coach. He just got hired that offseason. Nate Bjorkgren clearly fired after the one season during COVID. That was just awful. And since they've had Rick Carlisle, they've done a lot of moves. And so I think that when you look at how they traded back into the first round, they could potentially do that again if they get another high first round or second round pick. I don't know if they're going to get 31, 32, 33, or 34, maybe 35, but they have to probably get somewhere in that top 5 range in the second round to be able to get back into the first round of the NBA draft. So it's just something to think about, but there has been a lot of reports saying teams that are like fighting it against that second apron could be on the move. And I know that the Hawks also have pick 23. They're looking to maybe get out of it. I don't know if the Pacers would be able to get like the number 32 pick from Memphis and then trade that to the Hawks, and the Hawks would be like, all right, that's better for us. And then the Pacers get pick 23. It's not out of the realm of possibilities, but I wouldn't count on it. But I think that's probably the earliest you'll see the Pacers be able to get back into the first round if they want to do it. It's just going to take multiple second round picks, probably 4 to 5 to get back into the first round. You're trying to help these teams save money. Maybe if you take on a not so great contract and or just some salary relief for these teams, plus a pick that you get to move back in, that could be another way to do it. But either way, I'm kind of rambling here, but the Pacers potentially could get into the first round. I just wouldn't bank on it. I do think that there is more realism in getting into the second round. So I want to go through and look at 5 teams the Pacers could trade with in the top of the second round. So number 1, I've heard a lot of people say there's no way they'll trade with us, but it's the New York Knicks. And the only reason I'm putting this in here is because Jake Fisher said that the Knicks are only going to use either pick 24 or pick 31. They will not use both picks. And so I think with the Knicks kind of up against it financially, they're going to have to make some decisions. It looks like Mitchell Robinson is most likely gone from their roster just from a financial standpoint. Landry Shamet could also be on the outs. And so they are trying to figure out how to kind of just build that depth up once again. It makes more sense to keep 24 just because it's better talent plus a guaranteed contract plus rookie scale contract. But I could also see them keeping 31 and trading 24 because you can get somebody a little bit cheaper at 31. And if you think the player that they want could fall to 31, then maybe you take that calculated risk. But I think I'd call and see what it takes. People act like they haven't traded before. That's just not true. The Pacers were able to acquire Obi Toppin with that same, group of management out there in New York. So it's not like they haven't done a deal together before. And I'm sure there's going to be just a wide open, not, I'm trying to think of this, the right way to say this, but a wide open bid off for 31 because we've seen that happen before. And last year, the Timberwolves had pick number 31 and they traded it for 2 future second round picks and pick number 36. So basically, move back 5 spots, get 2 future seconds. That's good business. And the Suns were like adamant that we got to get in here. I think they got Rasheer Fleming at 31. And I mean, don't think we heard much about Rasheer Fleming. So it's not like they gave up a ton of draft capital to move up, but still quite a bit to move up 5 spots. And we can see that there's probably other places where teams have given up even more than that, but I'm just going off of last year. Now, that's the first team I think to make some sense. Number 2, honestly, the Memphis Grizzlies at 32 make a ton of sense, okay? The Pacers and Grizzlies had their first ever trade last offseason when Indiana acquired Jay Huff. Who would have thought that was the first time those two teams would ever have made a deal? You have to go all the way back to a deal that almost happened that didn't happen, and that was the O.J. Mayo trade that the Pacers apparently they either made it right after the deadline happened and they didn't get it in, or they had cold feet and backed out. But there was an O.J. Mayo trade to the Pacers 18, 20 years ago. I can't remember the exact date, but I do remember as a fan, as a Pacers fan before I was doing podcasting, just so excited about the idea of O.J. Mayo. I would have been excited about any new player at that point in my fandom just because I love seeing transactions. But last year they got Jay Huff for 2 second-round picks. This second-round pick that the Grizzlies have right now in this 2026 draft goes all the way back to a trade that took place in 2021. The Pacers traded it to Milwaukee, and then Milwaukee flipped it to the Grizzlies a week later. And so now 5 years later, could the Pacers jump back in and get their pick? I think that would be interesting. But the reason why I say that Memphis could be willing to move off of this is because they already have picks 3 and 16. They could probably use 16 and 32 to package and move up into the draft, maybe, potentially. Could a team like Golden State value that? Maybe so. I don't really see why OKC would value that. Maybe Miami would value that as well. But those are kind of the teams I'm envisioning in my head that could make some sense to move up in there. But I think 32 could very much be available. You trade. The Pacers have a Washington Wizards second-round pick, a Utah second-round pick that they could offer, and those are going to look very enticing in some deals. The Pacers have made some very good moves to acquire some pretty solid second-round picks in the future, and so unfortunately, just the way this season went, the one year they probably would have loved to have pick 32, they don't have it. So could they trade back for it? I think it's definitely in play. Now, the San Antonio Spurs have pick number 35. They also have pick number 20. They also have pick 42 and 44. Come on, y'all. You think the Spurs are taking 4 picks in this draft? Probably not. And we've seen the Spurs and the Pacers do business in back-to-back seasons. Let's just make it the complete trifecta. Let's do it 3 years in a row. San Antonio, you don't want that 35th overall pick. You're going to take somebody that's going to be a rotation player for you all at the end of your rotation at pick 20. This 35th overall pick is not going to play for you, probably. unless there is like a diamond in the rough that falls there, that makes a lot of sense. Now there could be. I mean, San Antonio is going to have to really consider their options here as they are building this young roster currently. It might make some more sense to kind of kick that can down the road. Look at that Washington second round pick the Pacers have. Look at that Utah pick the Pacers have next year. Could that be more enticing as they get another year further into these contracts that are rookie deals about to become these max extensions like we're seeing OKC deal with right now by extending Chet and Jalen Williams? So I think that there is a world where the Spurs are just like, you know what, we'll do this one more time. We'll kick the can down the road. We'll get some more assets from the Pacers because they've clearly become great trade partners. This will be the 11th trade if they do make this deal with the Spurs for 35. It'll be the 11th trade these franchises have made together, and I believe it would be the 5th trade that Pritchard and Buchanan have made with the Spurs, new front office. So clearly they like working together. There's been a couple of Doug McDermott trades involved in that. Of course, the Furphy and Cam Jones trades. So just a lot. But if you look back at what the Pacers were able to give up or had to give up to get Cameron Jones, it was a 2030 second round pick via Sacramento. And so they traded a 2030 second round pick via Sacramento to San Antonio for 38, like Cam Jones, and cash considerations. That's not that much. That really isn't that much. And we know Sacramento's second round picks in 2030 are going to be super valuable for the Spurs because the Spurs are going to be up against it from a financial standpoint, and getting high-end second-round picks could help them fill out their roster as they have to navigate a ton of salary stuff. So this is one that I'm really putting in bold. This is the one I think is the most likely to happen. I think Memphis is probably number 2, but I definitely think San Antonio just feels like the right team. Just depends on if they value those Pacers picks that they have in the second round. Now, at number 4, Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City has pick number 37. They've also got 12 and 17. There's been a lot of reporting saying that OKC is looking to maybe move 12 and 17 together to move up. I don't know what team would want 12 and 17 and would be willing to move back. Maybe Milwaukee. Maybe this is where Milwaukee goes ahead and does the Jaylen Brown trade, where they get Jaylen Brown and then they're like, you know what, instead of just taking somebody at 10, who we probably will take at 10 might fall to 12, and we get 17. So this kind of helps them get a couple young players here to go with their core, and they can kind of still make the decision on if they want to keep Jaylen Brown, build around him, or move forward. But is it worth it to move up 2 picks if you're OKC to trade 12 and 17? I don't know, unless you can get some future draft capital in the, a lottery protected type thing. I don't really know, or multiple seconds from another team. In addition to, trading, in addition to moving up, the Clippers are a team that has looked potential to move back, but going from 5 to 12 and 17, I don't know if that really screams good move by the Clippers. If you're the Nets, are you really willing to move back from 6 to 12 and 17? I don't know if I like that either for them. So Milwaukee makes the most sense. There's no reason to me for Dallas to do this because Dallas already has pick 30 as well. I don't know. Maybe they can sell pick 30, get 12 and 17, move back from 9, still get some good players. I mean, maybe Dallas is a little bit more in play than I thought. But overall, I just think that they're not going to probably pick at 37 if they keep 12 and 17. And so it would make sense for them to want to move off of that because, once again, we already know how tight they are up against it. And getting players on these lower second round contracts, right? Second round pick contracts around $1.35 million for the minimum. That could be the route that OKC wants to go because they just traded away somebody they developed at the 55th overall pick into a really good backup role player for them in Aaron Wiggins. Is there somebody else out there they could really target that makes sense for them? And they've just done a great job of drafting. Whether you feel like you hate OKC or not, you have to give them a lot of credit for how they have drafted. So somebody to keep an eye on. I think it makes sense. We'll see what happens there. Then number 5, I've got the Chicago Bulls. I think the Chicago Bulls at number 38, they've got picks 4 and 15. They're a team that makes a lot of sense for multiple reasons. And I'm just throwing this idea out here. I'm not even going to say the names anymore. I'm just going to say a tradable asset, like a tradable contract. The Pacers could trade somebody that is on an expiring deal into the Bulls traded player exception for pick 38 to give themselves some salary cap relief. open up more room to use their full mid-level exception, or at least a bigger portion of it if they don't, trade someone that makes enough money to get you the full mid-level. But I think this is potentially a route the Pacers could take. I don't know what the Bulls would value in terms of the 30th overall pick, like what they're looking for. But if they've already got picks 4 and 15, they don't make any moves in terms of like trying to trade up or whatever, and they can't trade up, it wouldn't make sense to take 3 picks. I don't think if you're Chicago. I mean, they probably have a little bit more roster space than Memphis does. But I just think with all the picks they have, it just makes a lot of sense for them to potentially be a team that would make a trade. So that's the 5 and in that 30 to 39 range. Maybe there's a team I'm missing. I know the Clippers are in that range as well, like 36. Do they really want to add somebody? Who knows? But I'm just going to go through it one more time just so you guys know. It is number 1, the Knicks at 31, 2, the Grizzlies at 32, 3, the Spurs at 35, 4, the Thunder at 37, and the Bulls at 38. So that is kind of how I see like the second round potential picks that could be available for the Pacers. So in addition to that, I want to just quickly run through my top 8 prospects that they could target if they get into this range. And so let's get right into it. Number 1, Emmanuel Sharp, a 6'3" guard from Houston, only has a 6'3" wingspan, but the Pacers worked him out, and he was just willing to work out for anybody. And I thought it was interesting that a lot of people are having him at like that 31, 32, 33 range. When you were looking at mock drafts back in April and even early May, he was like 45 or below. This was not a guy that was this high. So he really impressed in workouts. And let's just put it this way. I kind of view him as a smaller Dylan Brooks. Okay. He's scrappy. He's going to be in your face. He's going to be super defensive minded. But boy, oh boy, can he shoot the ball. Last season, had a career best 15.5 points per game on 37.2% shooting from 3, was named to the first team All Big 12 and to the Big 12 All Defensive Team. And in 2025, he won the Big 12 Tournament MVP. This guy's been in college for 4 years. He actually played his freshman season with Jarris Walker. So he's only 22. I just think he's a little small if you're looking for somebody that you're wanting to have more size, but at 6'3", like he can defend and put the ball in the basket. That is exciting to me. And the fact that so many people just like have him at the top of their second round, I couldn't shy away from that. Now, at number 2, I'm going with a 6'6" wing from Duke, Isaiah Evans. He's going to have to add some muscle because his nickname is Slim, but I'm not going to overlook it because his freshman season with Cooper Flagg, shot 41% from 3. Then he doubled his attempts his sophomore season and connected on 36% of his three-point attempts. Look, this is not a guy that's going to be driving into guys and trying to force up shots through contact because he shies away from contact. He's not a strong rebounder, but if you watch any of his film, he is relentless with his motor on the defensive side of things. He wants to be disruptive. He wants to get in passing lanes. He wants to, get in the way and play in transition. He's a good player, and I think a lot of people are expecting him to go in the first round. I don't really see him as a second round pick unless he like somehow falls at like that early stage there or that early range of 31, 32. But I like him a lot. I think he's really interesting. Now, here at number 3, this is someone that I actually can see the Pacers really liking. And this is Alex Caravan, a 6'7" wing for UConn. He spent all 4 seasons playing for Coach Hurley, won back-to-back championships in 23 and 24, played 150 out of 151 games as a starter. Throughout his career in college, a 37.4% three-point shooter, and he averaged 5 rebounds a game. Okay? He is one of those players that probably could have had a bigger role if he would have transferred somewhere else, but he just accepted that role and fit into it so perfectly and just said, you know what, there's a lot of great players at UConn that want to come play for Coach Hurley. I want to stay in this program. I want to grow from them and honestly, be the stability that this organization, not organization, but this school needs, this program needs. So he fit right into his role, spacing the floor, playing the right scheme on defense. Like, he's not like some lockdown defender, but he tries pretty hard, and I can respect that a lot. I mean, look, he's not going to blow you away athletically, but he is super strong. He can play the 4 and the 3. With the amount of experience that he had in college, I think he can play and contribute right away. So there's always one of those second-round picks that maybe slides under the radar a little bit because they're a little bit older. They don't have like this like super high ceiling or whatever, but I kind of view Caravan as like this super high floor second-round pick. I could see the Pacers targeting him a lot. Didn't work out for him at all, but he's got a great first name in Alex, and I'm kidding, guys. I just think that Caravan would be a lot of fun to just kind of cover because I think he would fit into what this team wants and can bring it on both sides of the court. And while Johnny Furphy's still out, like, you have someone that can play in that 3-4 role, and if he's ready to go right away, it does make somebody like Jarris Walker expendable in a trade. So if you're looking for like a cheap Jarris replacement with a much lower ceiling, I understand there's a much lower ceiling than what Jarris gives you. I'm not saying that, but this is somebody I think that can help you contribute right away. And I like the potential here a lot with Caravan. Now, his teammate, who I've seen mostly mocked in the first round, but I threw him on here because he has been slotted as maybe like an early second rounder. That's Terrace Reed, 6'10" big that played at Michigan and then transferred from Michigan to UConn and unfortunately lost in 2 national championship games. I mean, how difficult is that? So maybe he only lost in 1, but I thought he lost in 2, which is just it's just difficult. But he's clearly been a very good college big, and he is just an interior dominant force, really strong rebounder, super effective rim protector, and he just finishes a lot around the rim, has a really nice soft touch. Showed flashes of passing with 2.4 assists per game. I think he has more offensive feel than a lot of traditional rim running centers have, but I really like him. But 265 pounds, 6'10". He's going to bring you that physical presence immediately that translates to the NBA level. He's 23 years old, very productive in his final collegiate season, averaging 14.7 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 2.1 blocks per game, while shooting an incredible 62.1% from the field. High motor, combined with a 7'4" wingspan. That is exciting. I think there's going to be teams that talk themselves into him earlier than where I'm kind of projecting him at. But the Pacers, to me, they need help at the center spot. And while he doesn't shoot threes, and I know the Pacers probably want more of a floor spacing big, if Big Zoo is doing what everybody's hoping he's doing and working on a shot with Coach Busek, then maybe you need somebody that's kind of like that Isaiah Jackson, big interior guy that, Jackson's really not super big. I think that Terrace Reed Jr. is more of like got the same athleticism with the lob threats and the rebounding and the shot blocking, but he's got more of a low post, soft touch game than I think Isaiah Jackson does. So, you know what? I would really like to see Terrace Reed on this team too. I'm a big fan of Terrace Reed. I just do not think he'll be at the Pacers range, but if he had been, I might have had him a little bit higher on this list. Now, getting into the bottom 4 of my top 8, I'm going with Jaden Bradley, a 6'3" guard out of Arizona, was kind of the driving force of that Arizona offense, just kind of the table setter and everything. 6'3" guard, averaged 13.3 points, 4.4 assists, 3.5 rebounds, shot 39.4% from 3. Like, this is a very good player. Plays a lot of composure and control, limits mistakes, contributes defensively. Average 1.4 steals per game and only committed 1.7 turnovers. And if you're a point guard and you have the ball in your hand a lot, I mean, he only had 4.4 assists, which is probably not what you're hoping to see, but the way Arizona played, like, it wasn't just him bringing the ball up all the time. Braden Burries had his hands on the ball. Koa Pete was used as like an offensive like hub and would facilitate quite a bit. So I just think he's a very veteran collegiate player that would make a lot of sense. He didn't work out for the Pacers, but I think his traits that he possesses will translate well to the NBA level. He's got burst. He can attack downhill. He's got offensive upside. Honestly, I felt like he shined the most when putting pressure on defenses, using his swift first step and body control to get into the paint and create opportunities for himself and others. You just watch him play. You watch him clips on YouTube, and you can see why the flashes are there. What makes him exciting. And the Pacers do need some depth at their point guard spot. And I just see Jaden Bradley as a much better upgrade over Cam Jones at the backup point guard spot, and he's slotted to go later in the second round than where Cam Jones was taken. So Cam Jones more of an offensive scorer, but I think you can kind of replace what Cam Jones does with a Quentin Jackson. And I think Quentin Jackson's just better than Cam Jones at this point in his career. So I'd prefer to have more of like a point guard depth piece if they do kind of fall on maybe that San Antonio 42, 44 range with a pick. Jaden Bradley is somebody I really like as just another ball handler. Now, this is somebody I originally had a little bit higher. It kind of knocked him down because of the injury stuff. It's Richie Saunders. There is belief that he won't fall past Brooklyn at number 33. He's touted as one of the best shooters in this draft class. I like Richie Saunders a lot. I think when you're looking for like a legit scoring wing, this is kind of what you're looking for in a second round pick. But coming off a torn ACL, I just don't love that. I just don't love banking on guys that are coming into the league already injured. Like it's a little bit worrisome for me just because I've seen so many injuries happen with the Pacers. But I mean, for a 22-year-old, he was really impressive this year. 18 points a game, 5.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists. Shot 48.9% from the field, 37.6% from three, and 81.7% from the free throw line. Look, he's not a super athletic guy, but wow, has he grown as a playmaker, and he's a pretty solid rebounder. I like his overall play. I think he would be a very good Pacer player if they were to draft him. I just don't see him contributing right away, which maybe they don't need him to because they obviously have higher aspirations in developing a second-round pick, but comes back from torn ACL injury, can go rehab with the boom this season, and then all of a sudden you kind of go from there and figure out what you got in him. But we need a shooter. We've needed a shooter for a long time and a scorer, and I think Richie Saunders could be that. Now, here at number 7, we're going with the local product in Braden Smith. People are probably saying, how do you have Braden Smith so low? Well, I am a little bit concerned about the size, and maybe that's shame on me for doubting Braden Smith's size, but he's 5'10", 166 pounds, dripping wet. That's a tiny dude, and we don't see a lot of tiny point guards really thrive in the NBA. We've seen it at times, right, where small guys can't have an impact, but the NBA to me is getting bigger, and if Braden Smith had came into the league maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe you're kind of convinced a little bit more, but he's still projected to be a top 10 second-round pick. And so he did come in and work out for the Pacers. He is relentless. He is tough as nails. It kind of makes me sick having to talk about a Purdue standout because I'm an IU guy, but I respect his game a lot. I mean, what an incredible high IQ, relentless worker. The stats he put up this year were really impressive. Double-digit scoring, almost double-digit assists. Like he was a very, very gifted player, very good scorer, floor general. I don't see a world where he couldn't become the next T.J. McConnell for this Indiana organization. Product of Westfield, right? Mr. Basketball Indiana in 2022, Big Ten Player of the Year in 24-25, All-American twice, was an all Big Ten team 3 times. Like, this is a gifted college basketball player. I like him a lot. I think he could make some sense. I think if I'm the Pacers, I'm picking Jaden Bradley over him strictly for size and other reasons, but size is a big one for me and athleticism is a big one for me. It's just hard for me to get past how little Braden Smith is, but you never know. When the guy's listed at 5'10", heading into the draft, he's probably even shorter than that, and this probably with shoes on. So I don't know. I'm trying to be fair here, but Braden Smith is a very good player, but can he translate that to the NBA? A lot of people think he can. Number 8, and the final person on my list for a second round sleeper. This is Bruce Thornton. He might be small, but my goodness, does he have a knack for putting the ball into the basket this season? He averaged 19.5 points per game, 5.1 rebounds, 3.9 assists, and he shot 55.4% from the field, 40% from three, and 82.9% from the free throw line. Those shooting splits are incredible. 55 from the field at 6'2" and a guard. He was living in the paint, and then he got 40%. He made 40% of his threes. The more I watch him play, the more tape I watch on him, I'm just convinced, this is such a good guy, but I'm also worried, is this like Cam Jones-esque type of player because he is more of a 2 than he is a 1? can that translate? I mean, we kind of saw it a little bit with Alvarado and Bones Highland playing together for the Knicks and their second unit. Could like McConnell and Bruce Thornton play together? I think there's a world where that could happen, but I also don't think it's gonna, just like click for Thornton right away unless he's given this opportunity. And, with this team trying to win, I don't know how much of an opportunity he's going to get, especially if Shepard and Walker are still on the roster. But if you're looking for an elite finisher, I'm telling you, look no further than Thornton. 75% of his shots at the rim he connected on, and he shot 59% on floaters. Like, this dude was living in efficiency last year for Ohio State. Nearly got them the first round upset. They might have been the 8th seed, but they were playing TCU, I believe it was. It was a very back and forth game, and he was hitting a ton of shots. But I do think that the size issues at the next level are a little bit concerning. I think teams are going to hunt him defensively. He is a stout guard defender, but I think when you're looking at like wings and bigs getting him involved, like he's just going to look small out there. So I don't know, but he has been kind of a draft darling that's risen up a lot of boards over time. So yeah, I honestly, like, it's tough. So here's what I wrote on my final thoughts. There are a handful of contributors that will be available in the early second round. Out of the list, I love the two-way abilities of Emmanuel Sharp. He reminds me of a shorter Dylan Brooks. I'm not too concerned about his lack of size because of the heart that he plays with. If Indiana is looking for a wing, I'm torn on Isaiah Evans and Alex Caravan. The upside of Evans is much higher, but Caravan is such a winner. Both understand their roles, both add size and defensive upside, but Caravan has a stronger frame and is a much better rebounder. Lastly, while several Pacer fans would love to see Braden Smith in Indiana, I think I'm leaning Jaden Bradley. The smaller size of Smith does concern me, even though I know he has overcome this his entire career. Bradley is a better two-way player and shot a better percentage at the college level. Overall, there is plenty of talent in this range. It makes sense if the Pacers decide to trade back into the draft. And listen, if you guys like reading articles instead of hearing me ramble about it here on the podcast, I'm writing almost every day for Pacers on SI. And if you're wanting just like NBA coverage, like I've been doing a little bit more stuff on the Bucks side as well. It's weird to write about your rival team, but it kind of feels like that rivalry, as Miles Turner would say, is closing the book, because without Giannis, I just don't know how much of a rivalry there's going to be. But overall, I'm just really intrigued to see what happens. I think there's a lot to be excited here in the draft, and I'm sure there's players that I've missed. I've seen comments below on our YouTube page where they're just like, you're forgetting this guy and you're forgetting this guy. And I'm just like, there's a lot of second round options out there. Okay. Like Sergio De La Rey has been somebody that has been brought up for the Pacers, and it's just like 6'6", do it all guard that can shoot, can play the 1 or the 2. Like, there's a reason why somebody like Minnesota would like him. But I don't know. I think that there's a lot of different ways to kind of evaluate this talent. Joshua Jefferson is somebody else that I know a lot of people like as a late first round or early second round type of player. I do worry about like what he guards and how he does in the league without being able to really shoot the ball that well. He's a decent shooter, but like not consistently. Like, what position does he play? Like, who does he guard? Is he more of a small ball 5? Is he actually guard 4s? Can he guard threes? I kind of worry about it. But overall, I think there's a lot of intriguing players in this list. I could pull up a few here just to kind of talk about if you guys want to, as we kind of close things out here, like that are on a lot of people's radars. Want to make sure I get the names right. Yeah, so let's just look here for teams that are looking at like the second round. So Malik Thomas, right? I'm kind of intrigued by him as well from Arkansas, but I feel like he's a little bit too offensive minded for the Pacers. Trevon Brazile from Arkansas, power forward that averaged almost 2 blocks a game and almost 2 steals at 15 points and 9 rebounds. Like, understand the upside there. Azubi Ejiofor from St. John's. I think he's probably a first-round pick. Won't be there for the Pacers. Why I didn't put him on my list. Bobby Miller from Cincinnati. I mean, massive guy, almost 7 foot tall, 14.7 points, 11.7 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.3 blocks. Like, he could make a lot of sense if you like that style. Honestly, I didn't want to put a whole lot of power forwards on this list because I think the Pacers are pretty set there. And I also think that they really like what they have in Johnny Furphy. And so I'm like, that's why Alex Caravan is like, I can make the case for him being like a 3-4, potentially, and you just go a little bit bigger maybe. But, the big center from Virginia, he's like 7'1", almost 12-9 with 5.7 blocks a game. Like, that's insane. Like, if you can get somebody like that, like a specialist that's really good at rim protecting, makes a lot of sense. He's projected at 38 on Tankathon. Isaiah Nelson from South Florida, like 21 and 12 with 2 blocks and almost 2 steals. South Florida, like their conference is so weak. I don't know how to kind of evaluate those type of players. Dylan Mitchell to me has no 3-point shots, so I'm not interested at all. Jacoby Gillespie, it's a really small point guard from Tennessee. Not my favorite kind of player. Atega Owa from Kentucky. Hopefully I'm saying that name right. A lot of people like him. 20.5 points per game last year, 5.3 rebounds, 2.9 assists. Shot 33% from 3 last year. That's kind of a little bit concerning to me, but still like decent player. I've kind of seen him a little bit lower on people I trust, draft boards, things like that. Malik Brown, somebody that worked out for the Pacers as well, power forward from Duke. Like the same reason why I was like hesitant about putting other power forwards up there is just because I don't really see like the perfect fit for him. Now, Josh Padmore, who does a lot of really good draft coverage, and he's pretty quiet about it. Like he just tweets about it. Nobody really like follows and engages it too much. But he's a really good follow for draft coverage. He's been covering this stuff all year long, and he's really liked Malik Brown from Duke. That was somebody that worked out for the Pacers as well. He's listed at 51 here on Tankathon's big board, but I've seen him as high as in the top 30, top 35 for like a Sam Vecini or the no ceilings guy. So there's some intrigue with Malik Brown as well. So those are a couple other names that I didn't really mention on the pod or mention in my article that could make some sense. So just overall, really exciting stuff. The draft is always exciting. There's always a lot of movement, always a lot of chatter, and this kind of things are kind of where things really get started. So anyway, a lot of rambling from me today. I appreciate you all listening to me, and then would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you're watching on YouTube, I was playing with my hat a lot and finally just took my hat off because it was driving me nuts. But I do apologize for that. That is the ADD kicking in. So Pacer Nation, Facci and I will be back to recap nights 1 and night 2 of the draft. And I don't know if we're going to stay up all night long for draft for the first night because, my God, it is starting at 8 o'clock. That's when Facci's usually crawling into bed. So we'll see if we're able to keep Facci up that late. But I know Facci's going to be covering things for me on Thursday night once the draft is completely over. He's going to have a guest on here to kind of recap everything. I will actually be out of town with my good friend David Cole. We're going to a concert in Michigan, so I'm going to be out of commission for that podcast, but I'll definitely have that one edited and things like that. So Pacer Nation, I truly appreciate everything that you guys do for us and for listening and for being a part of the community here at Setting the Pace. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this draft preview. A lot of talking from me, but just wanted to make sure I covered everything, dove into some players, dove into some teams we could trade with, and just kind of give you guys like the landscape of how everything's looking right now. So with that being said, hope you all have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you all tomorrow. Peace out, Pacer Nation.